Thank you, everyone. Hey, thanks, Shubham. So we'll just get started. Shubham is the AVP and Business Unit of Growth at Policybazaar. We all know Policybazaar. Policybazaar is the leading online retail, insurance aggregator or marketplace, and a lot more now. Actually, once you go to Policybazaar, you realize they do a lot of stuff. And Shubham leads the retention marketing growth there. So Shubham, tell us more about Policybazaar from your perspective, right? How do you see the organization?
Sure. Thanks, Raj. And I think, first of all, brilliant event, and very happy to be here. And thanks for, all that MoEngage does for the company and for the, other companies in general. I'm very glad that you said from my perspective, because there are a lot of other Wikipedia definitions of Policybazaar, right? So of course, it's an insurance company that enables, India to have a financial safety net. However, I think from somebody who's working with Policybazaar from an internal perspective, I would say that we are a technology company that is extremely fast-paced and wants things done yesterday. So I think that's how I would define Policybazaar.
Got it. Now, I was just going to say that, right? I see Policybazaar as a tech company or insurer tech, but very deep tech company. And you build a lot of solutions from like improving customer experience to your back-end systems to integrations with other insurance vendors and many other things. So 3 years back, you chose MoEngage as a partner for the customer engagement requirements, right? So what went into that thought process about build versus buy? If you could really help us understand that.
Sure. So I think, Policybazaar inherently being tech first has always been a build first company. I mean, there are multiple reasons for that, and I'll get to that. But the joke that goes inside is that we are so much into our build first philosophy that when we realized that the claim experience in health insurance wasn't great, we're now building our own hospitals, right? So I think that's how much we like to segue into other areas which may not be the core expertise that we have today, but we like to build there. So I think there are three reasons, I would say, three tenets as to why we are in general build first. The first reason primarily is how we had a first mover advantage in the insurtech market, right? When we started, we were essentially the market leader from the get-go, and today we boast about 90% plus market share, right? What happens is that with great data comes great responsibility. Today, what we also have is data of pretty much every customer out there who wants insurance, and we want to make sure that that data isn't compromised. So usually that kind of responsibility is something we take very seriously. That is primarily the reason we are very careful and protective about our data and not sharing it. So that's part one. The second part, I think, is the complexity of the business case. Usually how it works is that when we are integrating with another partner, when you're figuring out a solution that is not your core expertise, you also want them to be an expert in your business use case, right? So it's like a marriage where you're bringing a certain set of skills and the other person's bringing a certain set of skills on the table. And every time we keep questioning that, what if we build that set of skills internally? Right. Will we be able to do it better than, let's say, them trying to understand our use case, right? Correct. So that is part two. And of course, that part three is where the first thing I mentioned when you asked me about Policybazaar is that we're extremely fast-paced. And as unfortunate as that is, it's hard to match that in the industry. So usually, when you're facing a problem and you want a solution done right away, not all partners will be able to match that. So I think with those three philosophies, we usually go and decide that, hey, it may be a better idea for us to simply build it ourselves. That said, I think the reason we went with MoEngage is after a lot of evaluation, and I'm sure you're aware of that, the stages that we went through. Because we saw that kind of expertise, one, that willingness to understand insurance, the tech folks and the product folks of MoEngage were more than willing to step up with us and understand what we're doing, customize it according to our use cases. And much more importantly, I would say the support. Every time there was a problem, there was no ticketing that we had to depend on, and there were times when I could simply raise it and say that, hey, we need it in the next hour, and things were done, right? So I think that kind of trust that gets built over time is what makes us scale with partners.
Got it. Thank you for that. So obviously everything else is good, but the results matter, right? Like what you are able to achieve from a platform matters, and I think you shared that the revenue that is attributed to retention marketing and the overall CRM efforts has grown 10x in the last 3 years, which is really big, right? So help us understand how did you get here, and what are the things that you went through to get to a 10x growth in retention marketing attributed revenue?
So 4 years back when I joined Policybazaar, although it does sound like it's been 10 years, the retention marketing piece wasn't that scale. It wasn't that big. Essentially, there were like a bunch of people, simply just sending SMS to a few customers, and that's about it.
Got
So
it.
it was more like an outreach and less like an omni-channel retention marketing team, right? What we did in the beginning was to simply do things which are like the bare bones, the basics, just to get those right, to scale as fast as we could. But then I think only in about a year or so we started realizing that, hey, we are hitting that saturation point. We're realizing that whatever basics we could correct are now corrected. And now to achieve that scale, you have to figure out more innovative and much more strategic ways out, right? And that's when I think partners like MoEngage helped us. That's when I think we also got a little lucky with WhatsApp for Business and other platforms like that scaling
Right.
on the retention marketing ecosystem. And I think, yeah, a team of fairly talented folks. So I think across these 2-3 things, we realized that today there is a need of extreme personalization. There's a need of hyper segmentation. AI was just up and coming, at least from a retention marketing perspective.
Right.
So, customization of the content that we are sending out to the customer. So all of those things built in together helped us achieve this number. So I would say the 2x was the easier part.
Right.
Then another 5x from there was a much more difficult one, but very, very privileged and I think lucky to have achieved that.
Got it. So let's deep dive a little bit into this, right? This 10x journey and what all went through this. So one thing I realize about this business is that the customer base is extremely diverse, right? Within India and even outside India, NRIs and other customers who buy insurance. So how do you leverage like omni-channel capabilities to cater to these diverse needs? Like, somebody prefers something, somebody else prefers something else, right? So what works for you in terms of deciding channels, etc.?
How I define omni-channel is not just communicating via all channels, but essentially being present on all channels, but figuring out which channel is the one that the user really prefers and simply, being there for them. So I think that kind of personalization, even during segmentation as well as deciding what channel, I think those are the 2 things that we have done from the get-go, right from the beginning. And we've also been very, very true to our nature of having conversations with the customer rather than a one-way communication where there are CTAs. We did away with SMS very, very early on. So I think using RCS, WhatsApp as conversational channels, even notifications, figuring out the timer notifications and understanding the use cases, those things have gone a long way for us.
Right.
We've also realized that in omni-channel communication, every channel will have its own advantage, for the lack of a better word. So I think, for example, email, as you can see in this slide right here, it is going to be a much more visual, much more content-heavy channel, where the user may give you a little more time to understand what you're trying to say. WhatsApp or SMS, on the other hand, you have maybe a few seconds to gain their attention and make a use case, right? And RCS, of course, will have its own limitations, but at the same time, it's a cheaper channel with a higher ROI. So I think all of those channels will have their own advantages. So figuring out, using strenuous testing that which one is the best, and then what users prefer that for you. So that's part 1 to it. The other part is that I think we also take segmentation very, very seriously. We try and figure out what are the saturated cohorts of users, which users are just tired of messaging and maybe they're not the ones willing to purchase right now. Just to bring in the context of insurance here, I think insurance, end of the day, is a product that nobody wants to claim. Like nobody's looking forward to using the product,
of
right?
Course.
You of course want to buy it for your own protection, but it's not that gratification that otherwise in an e-commerce product, when you buy clothes, when you order something online, that kind of gratification doesn't happen in insurance. So you have to essentially, as part of the business, you have to be really pushy. And while it may or may not work on calls, I have realized that with communications that doesn't really work. You can't send 15 WhatsApps in a week to a customer, assuming that now on the 15th one they may create a lead, right? So you have to be really careful with the content you're using, the time at which you're sending the campaigns, the channel that you're using for the customer, and also be very specific to their needs. So what happens is that if, let's say Shubham is somebody who's like a 30-year-old individual who's married but does not have kids, so any messaging around child plans, no matter how much I do it, will not work for me.
Yeah.
Right? So I have to be very careful regarding what exactly is Shubham going to need. So again, there is another part to it where all of this is pre-lead stage. This is when I'm not really sure if Shubham will show interest in my product or not. But the moment that happens, The moment an interest is being shown, now I have to nudge the customer to convert them better, and now I have many more data points from the lead that was created. So then I have to tailor the communications more, and I think that's where the workflows and everything that we do on platforms like MoEngage, they of course help us.
Got it. I also remember, like, you mentioned that timing also matters, because whatever you do, how do you create that urgency? Because nobody, I mean, unless it's a travel insurance, maybe they have a flight to catch and they want to book it, but nobody else has the urgency to take an insurance, right? That I can start searching and may not buy for 6 months. So how do you work on that? How do you personalize and create that sense of urgency to buy at least or make a decision?
Yeah, I think, I mean, if I had a penny for every time we wished there was a great insurance shopping festival or something like that, right? But we don't have it. And unfortunately, with such a regulated, extremely regulated industry, you don't really have a liberty of creating offers which are extremely tailored to a user. You can't give them discounts. You can't do a lot of things.
Right.
But there are, of course, some advantages that you get being Policybazaar. You have, the privilege of having some pre-approved offers for the customers. You have an option of tailoring some offerings for the customers who are already your booked users. You have some advantage while offering them renewals, right? There are bonuses which are associated with insurance. So I think all of those things are the ones that we sort of leverage in order to provide time-sensitive offerings to people.
Got it.
And then, of course, there are products like savings products, ULIPs, and other kinds of term insurances where prices keep on rising.
Right.
So those are other offers that we simply nudge the customers on, that, hey, if you are not to buy this right now, this may impact your savings in future.
Got
right?
it.
And of course, there is that fact that as you grow in age, the insurance, of course, becomes more expensive. So the sooner you buy, the better it is. So I think age-wise segmentation and a couple of other cohorts like that also help us. But at the same time, communicating that urgency is also very, very important, and you may not always get it right.
Right.
And I think that's where what I mentioned and what you see in the screenshot here, I think the timer notifications, specific WhatsApp messages that are, the headline itself is able to convey that, AMP mailers, RCS communications, where you're able to mention things like that very clearly from the get-go. I think they, of course, help.
Got it. Okay. And you also talked about workflows. So you have business where there is basically pre-lead stage where you are generating interest, and there's a lead creation and post-lead stage to booking, right? So, and you use multiple channels together. So how do you bring all of this together to convert users throughout this funnel? And how does MoEngage play a role in that, if you can help us?
Right. A couple of questions back, I think I had mentioned how once the lead is created, then there is a lot more nuance, there's a lot more data to play around with.
Right.
And maybe, make the communication as well as anything that we're doing much more valuable for the customer. So I think that's the part that helps us the most in this particular segment. And workflows, of course, help us a lot because it's event-based, and with those events, we'll have a lot of attributes, and those attributes will give us the relevant information to, push it forward to the user.
Right.
So I think that's a very important key part. A lot of workflows we have done. Usually what happens, and I've seen that in the industry quite prevalently, is that what happens is that once you're sending a communication, usually you will prefer fallbacks.
Right.
That if something didn't work, something didn't get delivered, there was no ROI, then you go to the next channel. What we also do, apart from having those fallbacks, we don't really prefer that as much. It's the follow-ups. So let's say one WhatsApp's been delivered. In a couple of days, I'll have some context as to if that made sense to you or not.
Right.
So then the next follow-up will happen through another channel. And again, we'll keep in mind what your preferences are across those channels, right?
Right.
And if it's still not working for the customer, if we have realized that after a point the feedback wasn't great, we'll simply exit them from the flow. We really don't want to bother them much. But at the same time, all of this constantly will have A/B segmentation in it.
Right.
So the content, the segmentation constantly will be tested against each other, and that helps us generate the higher CTRs. That helps us sort of beat the benchmarks, and we keep connecting with different teams within MoEngage, within Policybazaar, outside in the industry, to simply figure out, what is it that's working for the people out there, and what are the benchmarks we should take. Let's just keep ourselves honest. What kind of CTRs are really out there, and are we even performing to the best of our abilities?
Got it.